sell-off. Today, it did not. My time's up, but Charles, it's yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Stuart Varney. And yes, we are at war. The big question, of course, is when will America start acting like it and the rest of the Western world? This is Cavuto Coast to Coast. I'm Charles Payne, filling in for Neil Cavuto. And yet again, horror strikes. This time, 84 dead in Nice, France. 2 American among the victims. More than 200 are hurt, 25 now in life support, and 52 critical condition. Of course, world leaders are condemning the attack, but are they really doing enough to stop these attacks? Security expert Paul Viollis joins us now. Paul, as I look at this, I see so many different angles. There's a terror angle that we talk about, a political angle, and even to a degree a police angle. You know, some guy gets pulled over by the police, and he's in an unmarked white truck, and he says, "I'm delivering ice cream." There's no refrigeration unit on it at all. They say, "No problem, keep going." Right. It's a common thread through all of them. Political correctness?
There's no question about that, and also culture, Charles, if you think about it. Because when we take a look at how we gauge what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior, we always want to make convenience first and security second. I remember vividly when we had the Super Bowl here in New York, and everybody was complaining because the perimeter was a mile back. But they did that because that way vehicles couldn't be used as a weapon of mass destruction. Political correctness has played into this far too often, and we're certainly seeing the results.
Well, we are seeing the results. Another just absolutely horrific scene in Nice, France. And, of course, France is no stranger to this, and it's happening so often over there. It just, I found it interesting. When you hear the government talk about it, they say there have been 3 major attacks. When you hear everyone else who chronicles this, they say there's been a lot more than this. Even that, to me, suggests there's a disconnect between what the government would like to share or try to mitigate or tamp down on the severity of this. But isn't that a problem? We know it's severe. It's in our face. It's taking lives. How do we handle it if the governments involved won't take a firmer hand?
You know, it makes it much more difficult for us. I mean, thinking about it, right here in our own country, Charles, we still have yet to embrace the fact that we're at war. You know, we don't want to use that word. But at the end of the day, we're at war with Islamic terrorists. That's all there is to it. And we have to have our countries, respective countries, France, in this case, but the United States, we still have to step up to the plate and recognize when we're at war and who the enemy is and how they're approaching and what our vulnerabilities are. We've yet to do that.
Well, you know, we're, of course, in the middle of a presidential election. Both candidates responded last night. Both were on O'Reilly, with Bill O'Reilly last night. I want you to take a listen to what Donald Trump had to say about this.
This is war. If you look at it, this is war coming from all different parts. And frankly, it's war, and we're dealing with people without uniforms. You know, in the old days, would have uniforms. You knew what you were fighting.
Okay, we're at war. We're at war, but we don't. They don't have uniforms, no. And you know, they're not always refugees. In fact, more and more of them are people who were born in these respective countries or have been here for a very long period of time. So when you start to say we want to fight them, you know, the last 3 or 4 incidents in America, tougher border security would not have stopped those particular things. So it's a complicated answer to how do you win this war when the enemy is not wearing a uniform.
You know, and we've talked about this before, Charles. Part of it, too, we're going to have to get a lot more creative in how we're collecting intelligence. One, we're going to have to acquiesce to the point that our desire to have all this right of freedom and privacy, we're going to need to start policing the internet more and social media more, because we know that that's being used as a channel of information. The second part, and as you said, there is no face to these guys. So we need to look very closely at who they are and follow the information like we will forensically in this particular case, and how they were recruited and how they were trained.
All right. On that note, there are reports of raids right now going on underway in France, and more we're starting to get information on the suspect. We know he's a 31-year-old Nice resident from Tunisia. Here's the thing: he had no terror ties, but he had a very violent past, and the police were aware of it. In fact, Paul, I think this year he was arrested for assault and then actually sentenced to 6 months. So again, we're running into a system where, you know, you got to wonder, just even enforcing laws, enforcing sentences. I mean, perhaps this guy should have been in jail.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, we saw the same thing. We've seen the same thing here over and over again. Here's an interesting part, though, Charles, that I want to throw out there. He's from Tunisia. So we know for a fact that this mode of attack clearly has al-Qaeda written all over it. We know that al-Shabaab...
Is there a difference? between al-Qaeda and ISIS? I mean, should we, it doesn't matter, I mean, maybe to the average person, but to security experts, is there something about the methodology? Because we've been feeling that al-Qaeda is sort of dying, if you will,
right,
and the so-called JV League is taken over,
right,
and it always seems like ISIS, it doesn't matter either way?
It really does, and the reason why is because they have two different methodologies. ISIS is more sophisticated in its recruiting. Al-Qaeda is much more crude in its recruiting and its plays. But when you think about it, back in 2010, Al-Qaeda, in their magazine, I think it's called Inspire.
Inspire, yeah.
Right. They came out and said, they called on all jihadists, didn't matter who they were with, to mow down the enemy in glorifying Allah and use vehicles as weapons of mass destruction. They said that. Now, this is not a methodology that we've seen from ISIS. Clearly, we've seen it from Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda's been promoting it. So, you know what? Is it a concern? It's a concern because if Al-Qaeda's reemerging, we've got twice the problem.
You know, the thing is, talking about using these vehicles, certainly on a weekly basis, but sometimes it feels on a daily basis, somewhere in the world that there's a car or a truck that rams into a crowd and explodes. Right. Sometimes we pay attention if it's a place like Baghdad, for instance, but when it's in places in Africa, we don't care or we don't pay attention. When it's in other locales, but it's happening more and more, and it's obvious we cannot not pay attention anymore.
We have to pay attention regardless of where it is, whether it's Western Africa or Western Europe. It doesn't make a difference. We have to pay attention to it, and especially here, Charles, as we're about to take on a number, as the next several months, we're going to have a number of very large special events in this country, and if this is an indication that Al-Qaeda is back in the game, we know that they use vehicles as weapons of mass destruction, then we've got to pay closer attention.
Oh, boy. Stay right there 1 second.
Absolutely.
Because we have a guest on the phone. European countries, of course, are reinforcing security along borders in the wake of this horror in France. Mark Kokorian is with us. He is the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies. He has long warned about an attack like this, and he witnessed this attack last night. He joins us now by phone. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, experts like you have warned about this for a very long period of time. I think many people had thought it was possible, and yet it seemed like it was a pretty easy deal for this guy to pull off in a city that's known to be a high-security city.
Well, I mean, you know, it's an obvious target where there's lots of people gathered for Bastille Day, which is their version of 4th of July, fireworks, the whole thing. And, you know, it's an easy thing to do is to drive a truck into a crowd of people. How do you stop doing that? We, I think, are focusing too much on the tools used by terrorists, whether it's airplanes or trucks or bombs or guns, and not enough on keeping the terrorists themselves away from our countries.
Well, how do we do this? You're with the Center for Immigration Studies, particularly a place like France, which has long had, you know, accepted immigrants, particularly from Islamic countries in northern Africa. How do we handle this situation now, particularly those countries in Europe that I think are in a lot more danger than we are? Mark? All right, Paul, while we get Mark back on the line, you can help me with that answer. Listen, I think the audience, and I always try to explain to them, over the last 20, 30 years, Europe stopped having babies, bottom line, or they've cut down to the point where they actually need immigration. You need what they call to fulfill or a replacement population. You know, if you sell your house, who do you sell it to if no one's behind you? Right. That kind of thing to keep an economy going. I don't think people know in Italy, Italians don't make pizzas. It's the Tunisians who make pizzas because it's a low-paying job. Right. Why would they do it? Right. So I don't think the audience understand where the genesis of this came from. They've been facing it for a while. They've had to let immigrants in, and now they're in a point where they never assimilated. To a large degree, the Muslims haven't. And then the radical part of this religion has taken over and to the point where it's an extreme danger, and it's going to upset everything about what's going on over there, potentially even here.
No.
So how do we deal with it?
Well, you know, when we look at where we are right now with respect to the immigration side of this thing, I think it's really interesting of how we're going to handle it. We talk about the refugees coming in, but the biggest issue is monitoring. And we were alluding to that before when you were talking about this particular offender and his criminal background. But how do we monitor these folks? And how do we vet them before they come in? And how do we track them once they're in?
Right. I mean, France, I think, has 1,800 people on their watch list.
Right.
1,800? If it takes up to 25 police law enforcement personnel to watch someone like that around the clock,
right,
you start crunching the numbers and you wonder, where does the money come from? Right. But how do we do it? Because we've got to come up with a solution.
Part of it, I truly believe, is going to be a public-private partnership, and a lot of this is going to have to, a lot of the burden, believe it or not, Charles, is going to have to go down in corporations. When you think about what happened here in 9/11, we were both here at that. We know that this city underwent a transformation in culture. So when you look at our buildings, and I was part of the team that did this, when you look at our buildings today, look at the emergence of all the bollards that are outside. You can't use a vehicle here, but that wasn't that way before. We made a change. Corporations took it upon themselves and said, I need to make a change.
It's so funny you said
Government can't do this whole thing.
I remember they did it at the, first they did it, of course, at the New York Stock Exchange. So I would come out of my office, it was ugly. You big concrete barricades. It really felt like a war zone. It was uncomfortable. Then they designed them and dressed them up a little bit. But all of a sudden, not a few years later, I saw the same thing at my local mall, upscale mall, and it dawned on me one day as I was walking in, oh, do they think someone's going to drive a car here and blow this place up? Exactly,
and that's why we went and we adopted this particular philosophy, because we knew in this country this is a high probability of risk. But remember what, last point? It was Al-Qaeda at that point that we were concerned with, because that's their methodology.
Paul, great stuff. Don't go away. I just we want to talk about the markets here for a moment. Let's go talk to Scott Shelley. Scott, global equity markets look like initially they were down in part because of this news. We got some good earnings out of Citigroup, a real strong retail sales report. We were higher. We're not off a lot right now, but if you think about it, 4 days of all-time highs, there might be some digesting of gains here. Want to know the impact, potential impact of what we just saw in Nice and what's going on otherwise with the market?
Well, we've got a lot of money on the sidelines here, so anytime we do have a dip, you're going to see some of that come back in for rightly or wrongly. It doesn't matter. That's just the case. I tell my customers, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? So we're going to see probably our equity market rally only because of the fact that it's a place to safely keep your money and our economy is not doing as bad as everybody else. However, you look around the world, I think that this is a very bad thing for the ECB and the European Union, because what's this going to do to their retail sales for all, you know, they've got a lot of issues that this could slow down their economy, so I think it's a much bigger issue there. But then that means more helicopter money from Asia, more helicopter money from the ECB, maybe another rate cut in the Bank of England. So then that makes our rally even more stronger. So all these things point for the wrong reasons to an equity rally, and I think that we have to be very careful about how that ends, because we at some point in time have to come back down to earth and have these things rally because our economy is really doing well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I kind of feel like our markets are feeding off of the better than expected news in the last few weeks here in America. I mean, you know, the helicopter money, I think at this point, I don't know, Scott, I think they're impotent. I don't think these central banks can move the needle anymore. Even before the Nice tragedy, you know, we knew the ECB was going to do more. The Bank of England will do more. Japan is doing more. I don't know. You know, I hope we continue to move higher here, at least on good news.
I give you that. It's not as much of an impact, but it's still a definite reason why you see some people come into market and buy. It doesn't have the same impact as it used to do, say, 2 or 3 years ago. But ultimately, at the end of the day, hand on heart, Charles, can you say that the stocks are at all-time highs because America is at all-time highs? No. I mean, there's a big disconnect between middle America and the 15% of people that own 85% of the stocks. That's the issue here. We're at all-time highs in the stock market, but nobody's feeling all-time highs on Main Street. That's going to be a problem, and at some point in time, something's got to give, baby. We're going to have some sort of reckoning. Either we catch up to the stock market, or the stock market catches down to us.
I agree 100%, and I'm hoping that we catch up to the stock market. It used to be a harbinger of things to come. Maybe it's taking that traditional role. I'm just trying to be optimistic. Scott, have a great weekend, buddy.
I agree.
All right.
All right, you too. See ya.
Well, it's official. Pence is Donald Trump's pick. The big question, though, is he the right pick? Is he a politically correct pick? Some people not happy. We'll have more right after this.
Live from Cleveland, the RNC convention. Trust Bartiromo, Regan, and Dobbs for the analysis you need. Starting Monday, it's convention coverage that's on the money.
all new for 2016, absolutely stunning 1.5 ounce, 4/9 fine, legal tender silver bullion coins from the Royal Canadian Mint. The official name of this new coin is the 2016 1.5 ounce silver Canadian maple leaf, but we prefer to call it simply the super leaf. Why super? Each super leaf contains 50% more pure silver than a standard silver maple leaf coin. It's the same diameter, but thicker by half. And these all-new 2016 super leaf coins are available now, but only from Monex, America's trusted name in silver coin investments for nearly 50 years. You can purchase what's widely known as a monster box of 300 coins, or purchase as few as 60 coins, or any multiple of 60 coins. Call Monex for full details or log on to our website, monex.com/superleaf.
Are you missing out on life because you're putting off neck or back surgery? Call Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain, and with no hospital stay and no lengthy recovery. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic conditions, call today for your no-cost MRI review.
There were times my boss would send me home because I was in excruciating pain. Going to Laser Spine Institute, I go in, I have the procedure, and walk out a changed person, good to go back to work. I can't tell you how much happier I am. It's changed my life completely.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-844-972-BACK now for your no-cost MRI review.
Laser Spine Institute, a less than 1-inch incision, a lifetime of standing tall.
You may not be a prepper now, but you will be. Whether the next disaster is man-made or wrought by Mother Nature, you need a plan. WiseFoodStorage.com's emergency gourmet meals are made in the USA, delicious, easy to prepare, just add water, and packaged and proportioned perfectly, eliminating waste and creating a shelf life of up to 25 years.
And I cannot believe that it was made just by adding hot water.
It's got good flavor. Closed roads, power outages that last days, weeks, even months. Empty grocery store shelves with food nowhere to be found. Preparing your family with delicious emergency food is easy, affordable, and something you can do today, so you're ready for whatever tomorrow may bring.
Are you going to be prepared if something catastrophic happens?
Call in the next 15 minutes and get your free sample, and as a bonus gift, get your free survival guide. Call 866-589-7833, 866-589-7833.
All right, we've got the ticket for you. Indiana Governor Mike Pence appeasing many in the Republican establishment. Connell McShane, he's outside Trump Tower with the reaction. Connell.
Well, we knew, Charles, there would be no event to make the announcement today because Donald Trump tweeted as much last night, citing the terrorist attack in France. But when he made the announcement that it would be Governor Pence as his running mate today, he did it again, classic Trump fashion, via Twitter, saying, "I'm pleased to announce I've chosen Governor Mike Pence as my vice presidential running mate." News conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. And right after that, Pence took to Twitter himself, saying he's honored to join real Donald Trump, work to make America great again. Now, Pence was already here in the city, as the thought was the announcement would be made officially today over at the New York Hilton. He was spotted arriving via private jet at an airport just outside of New York yesterday. And then, interestingly enough, just a short time before the new deadline to do so, Pence dropped out of the Indiana governor's race, where he would have been running for a second term. In terms of reaction to all of this today, it is coming in fast and furious, as you would expect. Just a couple of quick examples. Marco Rubio on your Twitter has called this a solid pick. Solid pick, says Marco Rubio. Senator Joni Ernst, who some had mentioned as a possible Donald Trump #2, seems to like this as well. At least that's what she's saying. It's a great pick, she says. Not so much for Hillary Clinton, who says that Mr. Pence is the most extreme VP pick in a generation. And the Clinton rapid response team was ready to go with a 1-minute attack ad on Pence released shortly after the Donald Trump tweet. So there you have it. We know now, Charles, as you say, the Republican ticket, Donald Trump #1 and Mike Pence #2. We will see the two of them together for the first time at the Hilton a day later than planned. Instead of today, that will be tomorrow on a Saturday, 11 o'clock in the morning. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Connell McShane. Now to Trump backer, former Senator Scott Brown, on if this is enough to appease everyone in the GOP tent. I guess these days, of course, Senator Brown, you can't make everyone happy no matter what. But some hardcore Donald Trump fans are saying that they feel that this is an appeasement, if you will, to the establishment, to the Koch brothers, to the very nature of everything that Donald Trump has stood for so far in this election cycle.
Well, first of all, it's Donald Trump's pick. It's not his supporters' pick, but hopefully they'll come on board because he's gone through a very long and thoughtful process with regarding this obviously pick. I think it is a solid pick. I echo Marco's words. He brings in exactly what Donald wanted. He wanted that bridge between the establishment and his positions, the ability to knock on somebody's door and have that experience legislatively to usher legislation through and have the respect of the conservative bloc of the party. So it hits a whole bunch of different avenues. And I think what's going to be critically important, Charles, is who he starts to pick for his cabinets, especially regarding the terror. So that now we're dealing with, obviously, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who he's going to put in charge of all of our military branches, who his advisors are going to be on those very important Homeland Security and national security issues. So that's the next step, and I'm hopeful that it'll move positively.
So the concerns about Pence's stance in the past on trade and TPP, the Religious Freedom Act, Obamacare, again, these are things that have stoked the Donald Trump supporters. Now, again, I know that you say it doesn't matter what they think. Ultimately, I think it does matter what they think. They're the voters, and ultimately Donald Trump will work for those people and the American public if he's elected to the White House. So I don't know if we're electing a king or a president, but he should care what his core supporters think about, and they're going to be asking questions about this. And I would hope that he would give them legitimate answers.
Of course. So I didn't mean to be that callous. It's not important what they think. Of course, it's important what they think. They helped him get to this point. But he's gone through that long and thoughtful process, and he feels that out of all the people available in this world, that Mike Pence is the right person. And I would ask those Trump supporters, and I've seen them, I've spoken to them, is that, listen, give him a chance to do his due diligence, as he's done, pick the person that he wants, to have that bridge between, obviously what's happening legislatively, so we can push that agenda forward, push that genie back in the bottle, undo a lot of what this president has done when it comes to, obviously, we can just keep listing them off, Charles. We talk about them all the time, and we're going to need the help of those Trump supporters, those good conservatives, and those people who are on the sidelines and now may be more inclined to come back. We have to unite. We have to be a team to take on the Hillary machine. Yeah, there's no doubt that Governor Pence has an amazing resume, knows how to tool around Washington, D.C., and, I think ultimately everybody in the party, most of the party faithful will, if they're not already on board, they'll probably get on board. Senator Brown, thank you very much, and congratulations. You guys got a full head of steam right now. Yes, it's all good. Thanks, Charles. See you at the convention. All right. Hey, next, Trump's latest warning and the former CIA director on if we should be listening to that warning.
Financing the fight. With a huge deficit, can Trump catch up to Hillary in time? Behind the RNC's fundraising strategy, their finance chair adds it up on Wall Street Week. Then, a war on cops, debating law and order in America. The experts sound off on a must-see Stossel tonight.
Hi, I'm Ty Young. What if there was an investment strategy where your money was completely protected against market losses? You would go up with the stock market, your gains locked in, and when the market goes down, you don't lose anything. Literally, you go up with your money, never down, forwards and never backwards. What if that investment strategy actually